So I've got to be delicate with this. But what if I went to you, you were the EU or you were China, and I said, okay, listen, I'm going to put a 10% across the board tariff. Please accept that tariff. Moreover, here are certain industries where I think you're dumping stuff in our market. You got to stop doing that. I got to get these living standards up for these Americans. Let's revisit it in 2 or 3 years, and then we could negotiate again. Would that have been a better approach, perhaps? I'm just asking.
As opposed to taking a hammer and hitting everybody over the head straight away.
He's got the tablet out, and he's got the tablet. He's holding the tablet up. And I'm looking at the tablet. I'm like, okay, the math doesn't even make sense in the tablet.
The math doesn't even make sense.
And so I'm saying, okay, so now where'd you get that number from? And then you figure out where he got the number from. And then you're like, okay, but that's not even the number. That's not even the weighted trading tariff in between the nations. But then he's got these willing sycophants. So explain that to me. So these guys know better. And so they're sitting around with him saying, this is good. Like, I know Bessent, as we reported last week.
By the way, has been looking very awkward over the course.
But as we reported last week, he was not in the meetings. His people are now leaking. He wasn't in the meetings, try to save an aspect of his reputation. We know that Lutnick is in the crosshairs of several of the other cabinet officials now. They're dropping bombs on him, not only leaking to Politico, but they're
this crisis has caused a bit of a viper's nest because you've got Elon tweeting against Peter Navarro, who's another of the architects of the protectionist plan and has long been a supporter of tariffs and was there with Lutnick coming up with this. And then other members of the administration leaking against Lutnick. This doesn't to me suggest a happy administration. I do think the question of competence has to be raised. I mean, I think we always hope that there is a plan, and a couple of people have suggested to me there isn't really a plan. This is just something that Donald Trump believes in, but he didn't make provisions beforehand for what would happen if the market fell and how far he was prepared to let the market fall and for how long he was prepared to let this pain play out, that he didn't really have a plan for that. And I think the other thing we have to wonder about is this issue of corruption. There was, one of the, Bill Ackman, a big hedge fund guy in New York, was raising questions about whether some of the people in the administration had shorted the market beforehand, been long on treasuries, and so had a sort of conflict of interest in this. The Wall Street Journal had a really good line on Friday, which is that Liberation Day is buy another yacht day for everybody in the swamp, because for all of those countries and industries that are making calls now to the administration, which they're doing at the moment, trying to negotiate, guess what? There's some lobbyist who's making a lot of money out of that. So I think the corruption and the competence questions are big questions, but then the other question, and this is actually something that a couple of the people, Jay Morrissey is asking this, and I think this is the essential question. I wonder what you feel about this. Does Trump ever back down? I was texting with somebody who's been pretty close to Trump over the last 8 years, and he texted to me that Trump has to still prove that the world is wrong and that he will eventually capitulate, but he's not ready to yet because he has to win. Trump, it's zero sum, right? He can't be wrong and he has to be right and the world has to be wrong. And he still hasn't finished proving that yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, he won't back down classically. He'll declare victory and postpone the tariffs, or he'll declare victory and he'll probably try to find somebody in his staff to help him find some type of diplomatic way out where the Chinese say 10 and he says 10 and then they call it a day. But I think there's a lot of different things going on. I just want to bring up these three things, then we'll take the question. So thing number one is Bill Ackman, U.S. billionaire. I know Bill a long time. In the cockpit for Donald Trump 4 months ago, halcyon era coming, golden age of growth. Now he's like, WTF, what are you doing? You're about to destroy the global economy. And I think this is the migration that people have with Donald Trump. They start with him. They say, okay, let me double down on the loyalty to show Trump how loyal I am. Then they're like, wait a minute, the guy is completely wrong. So how do we fix it? Right? I think that's what's going on now. So you have a lot of people doing that. You have even people in the administration doing that. Number two, the tariffs have a weird thing. Haven't been put in place yet, but when they do, they'll cause inflation, Kat. So Trump's saying the inflation's down, but they will cause inflation. But there's a coefficient to the tariffs, not to be wonky and an economist, they will also slow down the growth. So, but the tariffs are so high that they will cause more inflation than they will offset the slowdown in the growth, which cause deflation. So the tariffs are going to start out inflating, then they're going to crush the entire global economy, and then you're going to end up with 1933, 1934 style deflation. And as Nicola King is pointing out, and I put this on Twitter over the weekend, he's Liz Truss. He's putting everything out there like Liz Truss did in an asinine way, which was crushing the sovereign debt of the UK, and it forced an immediate removal. I think she lasted like 4.1 Scaramucci's, but he's in the job. Unless you have a 25th Amendment, he's in the job. One last point, he is the virus. This is just like March of 2020. COVID-19, except Trump is the virus. And unless you're going to put through the 25th Amendment, you can't get rid of him. And he's crushing the lower middle income people who have their pensions. Police officers, firemen, first responders have their money in the stock market as a result of their pensions, and he's destroying them. So I don't get it. It'll cause his poll numbers to drop for sure, and it'll cause and the Democrats are in disarray, Gatti, but this is going to be a big boon to them.
Katarzyna Zawadzkaya. What should happen for Trump to back down? Because I think that is what the markets are waiting for. There was a blip today when it looked like maybe the administration was going to negotiate some sort of 60-day pause in the implementation of the tariffs. The administration then came out on the record and said, no, that's not the case. That was fake news. But how far do you think it has to go? Because let's say, the markets are it's less free fall today as we're speaking. Let's say it bumps along like this for the next day or two, and some people decide, okay, I'm going to buy the dip. Things are looking a little cheaper, and we see a little bit of a rally, maybe on Tuesday, Wednesday. At that point, does the president say,